have a right to choose where they seek asylum.
So, really? They should be able to seek asylum wherever they want? Great. Then I'll go and ask for a pension from Switzerland, shall I? The point is this: these people aren't just fleeing war, sometimes they want a better life, which is a human desire. But the UK isn't a social services office. The real issue here is the manipulation of the word right. A right is shaped by context. If we have to open the doors every time someone says, "I'm seeking asylum here," then why do borders even exist? At this point, I have a request for you. Please like this video and don't forget to subscribe. You see, spreading our ideas isn't easy. Every like you give is like a brick standing up against this nonsense.
Of the Nigel Farages of this world to whip up quite so much grievance against asylum seekers who have a perfect right to come and try and seek asylum.
Here we go with the Farage bashing. Of course, Nigel is to blame for everything. All he's saying is, this has gotten out of control. And that's the truth. Everyone is trying to look sensitive, but no one is talking about the social housing crisis in their neighbourhoods. What Farage is doing isn't populism, it's the voice of the people. It might seem strange to you because you didn't grow up in Westminster, but those living in Croydon or Bradford are bearing this burden on their shoulders. I ask, where has a country ever put its own citizens on the back burner?
We've made it incredibly difficult for family reunion to happen. Just made it possible for people to make their applications for asylum without having to be here in the UK. Then people wouldn't have to put their lives at risk. They wouldn't have to be driving then this criminal boat system.
But I think that the issue that people are raising is, first of all, you say they've got an absolute right. Question, should that continue to be the case? And secondly, I guess if you ask anybody in Epping High Street, they would say we're sympathetic to people, but we have a lot of homeless ourselves. And why are we spending £6 million a day putting asylum seekers in hotels?
Right here, bang. This sentence hits like a slap of truth. £6 million a day. We're basically operating like Hotels.com. How many social housing units could be built with that money? How many homeless children could be provided with a warm bed? One child is sleeping on the street, while another is eating 3 meals a day at a Holiday Inn near Heathrow. I ask you, which is justice? And why isn't anyone asking Starmer this? If you were to ask, there are hotels for refugees, so why is my son living in a car? The response you'd get is, societies should stand in solidarity. Ah yes, society, but not our own society, someone else's.
When my nephew, my son, my daughter cannot get a home.
That is exactly my point. So if we addressed some of those very legitimate concerns that
you're going to address it by putting his or her son and nephew in the hotel.
No, I'm going to address it.
Why have they got to be out on the street and the asylum seekers get the room?
I'm not very much of a fan of them being in hotels, and I think they should be allowed to work while they're waiting for their asylum.
Perhaps the only sensible suggestion is this: let them work, because we pay the taxes. But Starmer's team isn't keen on that either, because if they work, other flaws in the system will come to light. Look, there's no problem when they work, they'll say. This isn't anti-immigrant, it's a critique of the system. But what happens? They can't work, they wait, they stay in hotels, and for years. So they're not benefiting the country, they're disrupting the social balance, and they're fueling anger. People like Starmer are just trying to look compassionate. When have they ever taken responsibility or proposed a solution? In 2015, they said we should open EU borders for humanitarian reasons. The result? Millions of uncontrolled crossings. Sometimes we need to refresh our memory.
Process to feed through, so they could be making a contribution to the economy. They would love to do that. It would be good for our economy if they did do that. But my point is that the ability to whip this up into being such a kind of toxic issue would be far less if the very people that you were talking about did have somewhere for their kids to live. And that should be about making sure that in the 6th richest economy in the world, we levy a range of wealth taxes so we can actually deal with those problems instead of pitting vulnerable people against each other.
So now, we're pitting the poor against each other. But who did this? The government itself. A system that hasn't built social housing for years, exempts the rich from taxes, and protects the wealth of big companies. Now they turn around and say, why are you fighting each other? So who are we going to hold accountable? When Labour cut thousands of social benefits in 2012, no one called them vulnerable. But now that it's about refugees, suddenly everyone's heart is made of cotton. What a coincidence, isn't it?
All right, before I mark Reynolds' report card, what do you make of what Caroline's been saying?
I just don't see why it's a human right to leave France. And what's the problem with France? Why are we obliged to do this? This is completely
Because people have a right to choose where they seek asylum. If their family is here, and we've made it incredibly difficult for family reunion to happen. Because we've colonised quite a lot of the world, then they are speaking English. There are lots of good reasons why people might want to come to the UK.
They want to come to England because they speak English. For heaven's sake, should we move to Los Angeles just because we watch Netflix? What kind of logic is that? Historically, why was English spoken? Colonialism. And now this historical burden is being used as an excuse for migration. So let's say the lands left by the Roman Empire are our inheritance. Let's take some land from Italy. Would that work? This kind of logical gymnastics exists only among the liberal intelligentsia in England. No one in the real world would swallow such nonsense.
And it is entirely within their rights to seek asylum. They can be sent back if their application
As far as I
doesn't
understand it, it's a criminal act to enter into the country illegally. I mean, I don't get this.
We haven't made it possible for people to enter legally. So what other options do they have?
There is an established process of immigration, but this idea that it is a right...
Before you...
Safe country. Italy is a safe country. Greece is a safe country. The very few people land here as their first safe country.
Okay,
because of the geography, you great lummock. Can they?
Morris,
I've been called worse.
Morris, you've advanced some propositions, including, as you say, the Navy and the Channel and so on. Do you think anybody at Number 10 is listening?
No one is listening, because the people at Downing Street aren't listening to the public. They're listening to PR. The image of how progressive we are on social media is important. If a boat sank in the middle of the channel, they'd glance at it and tweet, "Our hearts are with them." But border policy? No way. What did the people say in 2016 with Brexit? We want to control our borders. What did Starmer's crew do? They worked against it. They winked at the EU, signed empty agreements with France. Then they sent a boat under the guise of a pilot program and took 50 people in return. Let's do the math. What kind of pilot program is that?
I think they've got to. I mean, this is a proper, profound debate with Caroline, I think, about rights. You know, and I think that a fundamental aspect of sovereignty is a democratic decision to control borders. I think that's entirely legitimate. I love liberty, Caroline. I'm not so keen on rights. I think this is not part of the common law tradition. So I think it's completely legitimate for people to vote to control immigration. That's not a violation. I also agree with what you say, that this is a strange situation where France is considered a hostile place. And I really don't understand why France is controlling. Labour's got to listen. It has to listen to the concerns of working class people and ordinary people. And in fact, it's spreading much wider in the society. This is a great country. We've had unprecedentedly high levels of immigration now for 40 years, and the toleration and the mutual understanding has been strong. We've got to be very aware that there's a tipping point here, and people have got to be heard without smearing them as far right. And if we're going to successfully resist a bunch of chances cleaning up in reform, we've got to get straight with the people.
If there was some kind of body near our border, perhaps called the European Union, where we could actually work this out together. No, I am serious. No single country can sort this out on their own. We used to have ways of having returns, and we threw all of that away with Brexit.
And of course,
you're taking us you guys are taking us into territory which is fascinating, but is going to get in the way.
This is the most important point. You can't silence every critic by calling them fascist or racist. The working class of this country has been bearing this burden for years, but when they speak up, they're told, "Are you the one making the decisions?" Yes, brother, we are making the decisions. Because we live in these cities, this country has been receiving uncontrolled immigration for 40 years and has patiently endured it. But patience has its limits. Do you know what this country's most fundamental right is? The right to determine its own future. If you've watched this far, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe so we can spread these truths to more people, because while some remain silent, we must speak out.